General Sir John Monash died in 1931 when my father Kevin, who was his grandnephew, was around 15 months old. As I said, my father and his ancestors and relatives were the only family Sir John had when he returned from World War I. As such, my ancestors mentioned here were all in Sir John Monash, Guard of Honour, at his state funeral along St Kilda Road in Melbourne, which drew somewhere between 300,000 to 500,000 people. It ran past the Shrine of Remembrance, which Sir John helped lobby for, design and build, with a little help from his brother Vicente and other relatives of mine. There is a theory that they offensively pretend there was only 3 Indigenous military personnel serving during WW1 to keep the crowds down at the memorial services, because the crowd at Sir John's state funeral in 1931 was over 300,000. That is despite the electoral rolls to enlisted personnel lists comparison. If somebody points that out, there can be claims of no civilization was present. When an Indigenous person attends a memorial service, including a dawn service, the other people usually get unavoidable descriptions of strange smells from the Indigenous person. Everything from pyramid surrounds to aviation fluid to poisoned bacon. A murmur goes through the small crowd to watch out for the bacon smell description, etc. Another Indigenous person has attended. Don't be put off attending by them. My grandmother Myrtle, my uncle Ian, and my father Kevin Webb being carried by an adult at 15 months old can all be seen in archive film footage of Sir John's state funeral in 1931. They were directly behind his covered coffin travelling down St Kilda Road in the Guard of Honour reserved for family. There is also a statue of him in the Shrine precinct, depicted on horseback. Respect for family is a struggle for some people in this country. My grandmother Myrtle was Sir John's official next of kin when he died, as his niece. My father thought she was very brave at his funeral, including because she was vision impaired and was following the sound of the horse-drawn cart. The military in this country is still majority part Indigenous people. In retrospect, my ancestors' histories meant that if for some reason I had joined the military, I would not have even been allowed to coherently do up my shoelaces without interference. 2 school acquaintances joined. I even saw one leave on the train at Warrigal Station. If it was an attempt to lure me into joining too so they could haze the life out of me, it was pathetic. I had my own issues to deal with from a much younger age. Being Prince Imperial of my Hohenzollern royal family from just under 6 years old, for one. I wasn't in a healthy enough state to take on anything seriously physically strenuous from teenage age, due to what they were doing to me and my father Kevin starting the early 80s. Lunatics can seem like over-enthusiastic amateur actors just looking for a theme and some costumes. Give them to them and they aren't shy about being a bigotry billboard if they think everyone else involved will dress up too. My grandmother Myrtle wigs have been the insane version of stalker fashionable for a long time here. Post-Federation compulsive lies in this country are still right up there with things like the fake history of my grandfather Adolf Hitler. I am glad I have a true sense of family. This country uses almost utopian-looking attempts at legislation siphoned out of someone with good intentions and sports corruption to provide a masking curtain. The people get too disgusted at how pathetically weak the bulk lowest common denominator sludge is to even talk at times routine. They think that one means Indigenous people never talk at all. If that is what it looks like, whoever they are trying to deprive of the ability to even talk out of absolute disgust must have done something right. It means the Aussie would wannabe tabloid dress-ups, types who talk every time they breathe out regardless of whether they think about it or not, end up reading the good stuff altruistically out loud to the public, including to see if someone worthy of credit gets jealous. Though we'll take it a step further and out ourselves as looking completely abhorrently evil if you don't play along and pretend it's organized crime heaven play. If they pretend they'll go one step further to absolutely abhorrent and move their foot, maybe everyone will pretend to be completely happy with it their way it is already. It's a wealthy country and a difficult one to live in for a variety of reasons, some of them external. My experiences here are no travel or immigration brochure by any means. I'm a tourist attraction and the price is wrong. The shrine itself has a clear theme of personnel from regional Victoria in its 4 directional surrounds. A disproportionate number of WW1 service personnel were from Gippsland, Old City of Yarragon, Ballarat, Bendigo, Geelong and the Murray River towns. Hecklers tried to ruin Sir John's state funeral with homophobic slurs and stupid accusations of treason like treachery because he was personally involved with a part Turkish man after World War I. They didn't really succeed, but those types still almost routinely attempt to desecrate his statue at the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne semi-regularly. I have similar hands, legs below the knees, vocal tendencies and facial features to Sir John, who was my grandmother's uncle. In truth he was an Indigenous Gippslander, unexpectedly left at a Melbourne orphanage boarding school as a child, run by the recently emigrated Mr. and Mrs. Monash. They provided him with an obviously thorough education after his adoption in the mass adoption. Public rumor entries claiming he was a Polish Jew who emigrated from Germany after birth are complete fiction and offensive. He was familiar with the Jewish community via his adopted boarding school orphanage parents Mr. and Mrs. Monash. His adopted mother Bertha Monash was his adopted mother, not his wife. He had a close relationship with his brother Vicente most of their commensurate lives. There are plenty of things named after him, obviously. Including local roads and parks here in Old Yarragon, Gippsland. I try not to go the proverbial blue in the face about the publicly searchable information. To be blunt, I am biologically related to all World War I and 2 Army generals from this country, probably without exception. Also the person referred to as the father of the Australian Navy. The Aboriginal flag was designed partly by Indigenous military personnel, families and family descendants. It was designed to remind people of the electoral rolls used at elections here, which require a horizontal pencil line recorded in them, between square brackets, when someone votes in an election, referendum, or plebiscite here. Voting is still compulsory in Australia, probably a product of pre-1967 electoral segregation. Trying to get as many of the enrolled voters, with Indigenous people ineligible to enroll, to vote each time. There is also the round yellow gold circle, which observant types recognise as being reminiscent of the gold Australian Army hat badge, particularly the old Anzac one. Without it actually being an army symbol, obviously. That wouldn't have been inclusive enough. Officially Indigenous military personnel who served in this country's military bodies between Federation and 1967 were not eligible to enroll to vote, or run for an elected position in government at any level. It is really simple. Military enlisted personnel lists, active service or enlisted, have the names of everybody who joined the military between Federation and 1967, particularly for World War I and World War II. The records for WW1 and WW2 have been carefully maintained. Anyone on those lists who was not enrolled to vote was around a 95% chance to be an Indigenous Australian. Over 70% of military personnel who served during World War I were not on any electoral roll for any election before, during or after World War I. That percentage dropped a little for World War II. People trying to check on or get updates about their Indigenous relatives, friends and loved ones serving in the Australian military were monotonously given the same insipid excuse. Oh, I'm sorry Mr. and Mrs. Whatever. Your Aboriginal sons that joined the Australian Army aren't on the electoral roll because they are ineligible to vote, so we can't give you an update on their whereabouts or state of health at the moment. Official statistics state over 416,000 Australians were enlisted in the military during WW1. You do the maths on how many were likely to be Indigenous Australians.